Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is earn. Let's take a moment to look at some of the definitions or the ways that we use this verb. The first way you hear the verb earn used is to mean to obtain money in return for labor or services. So with this first definition, you can think about working and the money you receive or the money you get, right? We're going to see lots more examples of that as our video continues. Now, a second way you might hear earn used is to mean to cause someone to obtain money. A good example of this might be causing someone or a group of people to earn a bonus. Perhaps it's a team who has won a certain championship. Sometimes you'll hear this group of players earned this much because or as a result of their actions. A third way earn gets used is, again, in connection to money, and this is when one gains or gets interest or other profit. So you'll hear this used in connection to bank accounts. You might hear it with stocks and bonds, other types of investments that may earn interest or gain money for the person who owns that. A fourth way the verb earn gets used is to mean to gain in return for one's behavior or achievements. So, you might hear of people earning a prize for perfect attendance, perhaps at their school. That's just one example. Again, we'll see a few more as the video goes along. You should know that the verb earn is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, all I'm going to do is add ing to form earning. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by just adding ed. Our base verb, earn, ends in a voiced n sound. This means that the ed ending is just going to make a d sound, and I'm not going to add an extra syllable as I say it. So it should sound like this: earned, earned. Okay. You'll be happy to know no additional phrasal verbs for us to study today. So instead, we'll move on and practice a couple different verb tenses. Today, we're going to practice the simple past tense and the simple future with a focus on be going to. Let's start with the simple past tense. We use this verb tense to talk about completed actions that occurred at a known point in the past. There may be time signals in our simple past tense sentences, words like yesterday, or perhaps a time period, 5 years ago. You might see references to specific dates, all indicating past. Now, that's not true in every sentence, though. Sometimes it's implied as part of a conversation, or it's part of a longer passage. And so if someone's telling you a story, they're not going to keep repeating the date at which certain events occurred. The nice thing about the simple past tense is that our structure stays the same no matter what our subject is. So in the affirmative, we have our subject, and then we have our ed form of the verb, since this is a regular verb. You can see that in my example sentence. In her first job, she earned $5 per hour. This sentence ties back to that first definition. So here we have somebody working, providing labor, and they're getting money in return. Now let's look at negative sentences in the simple past tense. To do this, I start with my subject, I use did not, and then the base verb. You might also hear the contraction didn't and then the base verb. Here's another example. He didn't earn enough to pay his bills last month. Okay, so he did not obtain enough money. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple past tense. To do this, I start with did, then I have my subject, and then the base verb. I always like to point out to students, notice the only time I'm using the ed form of the verb is in the affirmative or with positive sentences. I'm not using it with negative, and I'm not using it with the yes or no. So let's take a look at that yes or no example. It says, did the team earn the top seed in the tournament? This might go back to that fourth definition we talked about, where someone is getting something in return, not necessarily money. And in this case, this sentence does not involve any money. Now, let's move on and talk about the simple future. Today, we're going to focus on making sentences with be going to. This is really common when people are discussing their plans. It's a little less common to hear it with predictions, but you may still encounter some sentences that way. When we make sentences with be going to, we do need to pay attention to our subject because the form of be is going to change. We're using the present form of be. So if my subject is I'm going to use am. My subject is he, she, or it, I'll use is. And if my subject is you, we, or they, I will use are. Okay, so we have subject, we have our form of be, then we use going to and the base verb. No special endings on the end of the verb here. Let's take a look at an example. These athletes are going to earn millions through the NCAA's name, image, and likeness policy. This is something a little new and specific to American colleges and universities. For a long time, college athletes were not able to be paid in return for their participation, but there is a slightly different rule that does allow them now to make money or earn money. Now let's talk about negative simple future sentences. To do this, I start with my subject, I use the form of be that matches, then not, then going to, and the base verb. Here's another example. You aren't going to earn interest on that account. Okay. Finally, let's talk about making a yes or no question in the simple future. To do this, I start with the form of be, whichever form matches my subject, the subject comes next. I use going to and then the base verb. Here's my last example. Is this credit card going to earn us points for travel? Here's another example that would tie back to that fourth definition, where we're not talking about money or someone receiving it. In this case, we're talking about benefits that someone might be able to convert into free flights. I have certain friends that love to travel, and they're always kind of thinking about what kind of points will they get for this or that, so that they can turn it into free flights. Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words and phrases related to our verb earn. The first word we're going to discuss today is the noun earnings. This can have a couple different meanings. The first way the noun earnings gets used is to refer to money that one gets or one obtains in return for their labor or services, for their work or their services. An example of this might be, they use their earnings from the summer to pay rent and buy books. This is true for a lot of students. I know they work hard over the course of the summer and maybe able so that they are able to turn around and have money to pay for rent, pay for their books. A second way the noun earnings gets used is to talk about income from some type of investment or product. An example of this might be, with a Roth 401k, your earnings may be withdrawn tax-free in retirement. Okay? And this might get a little specific. If you're not sure what a Roth 401k is, don't worry about that. But again, it kind of goes back I believe it was our third definition of the verb where we were talking about interest and one receiving that because of an investment. That's very much what is connected here with the second definition of the noun. Let's talk about a couple phrases you might encounter. One phrase is to earn one's keep. What this means, if you hear somebody use it, is they either are asking someone or suggesting someone is or isn't performing enough or sufficient work in help in exchange for money or housing. An example of how you might hear this used. Her parents agreed to let her move back in, but told her she would have to earn her keep. Right? So, what the sentence is suggesting to me as a reader is somebody's allowed to come home, but it doesn't mean they're not going to be helping out or providing in some way. So it's not like you get to move in and live rent free and we make your food and we clean and we do, right? No, right? There's going to have to be work for this arrangement to work. Another phrase you might encounter is to earn one's stripes. This means that someone is proving that he or she is deserving of a particular position or designation. An example of this: you'll need to earn your stripes before you're considered for a manager role. So here, it's going to be like demonstrate, show that you are ready before you are even considered for a promotion. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.